Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the April 2023 regular Board of Education meeting. I want to start by recognizing and acknowledging both the Esquimalt and Songhees nations on whose traditional territories we live, we learn, and we do our work. Trustees, may I have a mover to approve the agenda? Thank you, Trustee Gagnon. And a seconder? Trustee Kwan, thank you. Any changes or amendments to the agenda? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of the agenda? And that is unanimous. Thank you, trustees. All right, so we have a few sets of minutes this evening to consider, A through C. I wonder if there are any minutes here that folks want to sever for discussion, or if we want to move these as a group. Okay, it sounds like we can move them as a group. Yeah, Trustee Kwan, you want to move that as a group? All of them as a group, thank you. And a seconder, thank you, Trustee Mabobi. Any changes or amendments to any of the minutes? All right, all those in favor of the minutes then? And that is unanimous. Thank you, folks. Okay, so we're moving right along. We are now at business arising from the minutes. Do we have any business arising from the minutes? I just had actually two. So I wondered whether or not we had, so at trustees requested that we be provided an update on the work plan related to the mental health and professional development amount that was allocated, and we heard that that update would be provided through ed policy and directions. I just wondered if we know at this point what ed policy meeting that update will be provided at. I'd appreciate if we don't have a date yet in mind.
Yeah, through the chair. At this time, we don't have a date in mind, but we'll be working on that through our May work plan, and we should have something for June.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Any other business arising from the minutes, folks? Okay. We do have a number of community presentations this evening. We have 3 in total. The first is from Sergeant Jody Pavasic. I wonder if the sergeant is here with us this evening.
I am here, thank you.
Oh, welcome. Nice to see you.
You too.
So the way that it works is that I'll turn the floor over to you, and then when you're ready, you have 5 minutes. I will let you know when you're about 1 minute away from the 5-minute mark, just to let you know to wrap up.
Great, thank you so much. I can start right away.
Perfect, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. My name is Jody Pavasic, and I sincerely appreciate the time to speak to all of you tonight about the potential for this SLO program coming to a conclusion in School District 61. I'm a mother of 2 teenagers, a Saanich police officer of 24 years, and the sergeant in charge of the Community Engagement Division and a school liaison officer for the last 3 years. I was born and raised in Victoria and have dedicated my life to the service of others as a result of the positive interactions I had with my school liaison officer as a youth. I'm here to share a narrative that is not present and not seen. My team, who consists of fathers, mothers, and caring individuals who have signed up for this work to help support a community in whatever way they can. The world is changing, and more than ever, our youth need our support in every aspect of their lives. A world where social media is so predominantly present and causing a substantial amount of anguish, stress, and decline in the mental health of our youth. A world where youth crime is on the rise, and our kids are facing the negative effects of a pandemic that took 2 years of their lives and has intertwined organized crime within our schools. Conflict occurs in everyday schools, and having the ability to prevent and educate youth on the challenges they are currently facing will only strengthen their resiliency and their ability to deal with conflict, make good decisions, be kind, and continue to build healthy relationships with everyone in their lives, including professionals and community members that one day they too will be. There are police officers in your communities that dedicate their lives to helping make a difference and improving the lives of others. Social media bombards our existence with negativity when in fact amazing stories and connections are made daily. Sadly, you just don't hear about them. My team takes phone calls from teachers, parents, and students requesting guidance and support 24 hours a day, including weekends. We have been invited to students' presentations to show support and graduations to speak to student successes throughout the year. When we enter schools, we are welcomed with high fives, smiles, and students who share their passions and dreams. We encourage free thought, conversation, and being advocates for themselves. We talk kindness and how we can better support each other through and in our communities. We talk differences and how they are okay and how we can better support those differences and each other. We help navigate youth away from the criminal justice system by working with students, families, and schools that supports an outcome of learning and growth. We do not absolutely walk the halls and arrest students. We are prevention and education service, and collaboratively with teachers, we help educate based on the current challenges the schools may be facing. We deliver numerous programs that include the Party Program, where students learn to navigate effects of driving while under the influence of alcohol or drugs. We teach internet safety, Halloween safety, bike safety, lockdown drills. We participate in Cram the Cruiser events and support community charities and food and clothing drives alongside our schools. We coach kids sports teams, we play sports with the kids, we serve breakfast and meals for community school events, we participate in Remembrance Day ceremonies, we celebrate culture and diversity with students through cultural feasts and events. We are also community role models to members of the community and students, where we encourage leadership, diversity, and inclusion through our education efforts and shared experiences. I recently had an opportunity to be a team leader in the police camp, and the first one in over a decade. Several of us officers were there 24 hours a day for 9 days. 46 students came together from all different schools, districts for their first week of spring break to participate in this leadership camp. This camp was incredible, and I cannot put into words how amazing it was to watch our youth build positive relationships and learn and grow in such a short amount of time. One student provided to me what this experience did for her and allowed me to share it with you tonight. If I could go back and do it all again, I would. I cannot and will not stop spreading the good word about one of the most impacting experiences of my young life. Police camp gave so much more than learning about policing. Officers invested so much of themselves and taught us life lessons to carry with us, and I wish we had more of that in schools. Strong bonds were formed at camp with officers and peers. I felt supported knowing that my community looks out for one another, that no one gets left behind. I truly wish everyone could experience what I felt at police camp. I want people to know there is a massive community here to support us. End of quote. You cannot put a price on relationship building and how instrumental this is for all youth and community members. It takes a community to raise a community. And the only way—
Sorry to interrupt, you have just under a minute left.
Thank you. And the only way to best support our youth moving forward is, as police camp taught, teamwork, leadership, education, support, and the knowledge that you have community behind you. If you move forward with removing police from the schools, you will be doing the opposite of what we hope youth will achieve in their futures: positive relationships with all community members, the ability to connect on all levels and to learn from one another so we can all feel welcome and supported in a place we all call home. If we want better futures for our youth, we need to remove our own biases and come to the table and work together supporting the needs of the youth. If you remove us from schools, you will be doing the complete opposite. And I can tell you from my 24 years of policing experience, you will absolutely jeopardize the health and safety of our youth for years to come. So please, before making a very important decision that could potentially jeopardize 20,000 students, I welcome you to come and spend the day with my team and observe all the amazing collaborative work teachers, students, parents, and police are doing every single day.
Thank you, Sergeant.
Thank you
Appreciate
for
your
your
time. Thanks for coming to speak to us this evening.
Thank you for having me.
All right, folks. We also have Mia Golden here, who's also going to speak about Police Liaison Program. Mia, welcome. Nice to see you again.
Hi, nice to see you. Okay, yes, I've written everything down as well to try and be succinct. My name is Mia Golden. I am half of the MIST team, the Mobile Youth Services team, which is made up of a police officer and a counselor. I'm the counselor half. I really want to focus on two areas that keep coming up as themes within this debate. Firstly, I wanted to talk about the suggestion that SROs in our schools would be triggering to students. From a very young age, most children here in Victoria understand that if one gets lost or needs help, to call police. Generally speaking, police are synonymous with safety. Children from a very young age are naturally curious about police. Before becoming a youth and family counselor, I was an early childhood educator. I worked in the toddler room with children 18 months to 3 years of age. They had a natural love for police and police vehicles. My concern is that what happens when children are suddenly being given the message that the people who are there for safety are now being villainized. Children are faced with an inordinate amount of stressors today, and it's imperative that we as adults do not project our own biases or agendas onto the children we interact with every day. By insinuating or suggesting to a child that police are no longer safe, we rip away the very foundation of safety for them. SROs in the schools are therefore improved safety, the perception of improved safety, which is key, increased likelihood of disclosures, reduction of anxiety when disclosing, improved response times, prevention of potentially dangerous or harmful events. Since the removal of the SROs in Victoria, our team, my work partner and I, are constantly in the schools. My own children were lucky enough to have school liaison officers. My oldest attended police camp way back when. They both had very positive experience in their schools, as do the majority of most students. I remember years ago, Saanich Police used to have baseball cards with the SROs on it, and young students used to ask for them all the time. Children viewed them as role models. Children who lack positive role models are more likely to fail academically, more likely to become involved in the justice system, and likely to develop and less likely to develop emotionally, as well as have stable vocational futures. And now I'd like to address the issue of the suggestion that police officers are negative for people of color. A couple of years ago, I read a letter by a member of the committee, and it was concerning to say the least. The messaging being pushed by this member, a white man on the committee, was that police presence could be triggering to BIPOC folk. Before I address that statement, I would first like to say how important it is that white people not speak for those of us who are people of color. As a Black woman, when I hear someone pushing their own agenda on the backs of people of color, this is a huge red flag. It is one thing to bring up concerns, but the letter I read was not one from an ally. It was skewed and extremist in its language. He continually kept referring to BIPOC folk, which sounded dehumanizing and offered him a seat of power. This was on the heels of George Floyd's death in the US, and he took full advantage of that to push his own agenda. Because of the actions of one police officer in the States, we suddenly had a reason for anti-police folk to rally. If that is the approach, then the same thing could be applied to teachers. Most perpetrators of violence and abuse to children and females are men. If we are concerned about children being triggered by a potential source, then should we be applying that same logic and not having male teachers? No, of course not. It's a ridiculous solution. Only a small percentage of the population are perpetrators. So instead, children get to see what a healthy male should look like. And that is the same thing with police liaison officers. The children—
1 minute left, Mia.
Thank you. The children we interact with should not be indoctrinated into someone else's negative agenda. I don't know why this person doesn't want police around. It's not for me to speculate. But now more than ever, we need police in the schools. We are seeing an increase in gang recruitment. We are seeing an increase in weapons, an increase in sexual assaults, exploitation, an increase in drug use in the schools, and we are seeing a decrease in a feeling of safety. Children spend a significant amount of their life in schools. We need to be giving them back their sense of safety.
Thank you very much. Again, appreciate you being here. Thanks for speaking to us this evening. Our final presenter, and again on SPLO officers, is Mark Jenkins. Mr. Jenkins, hi, welcome. And I guess yeah, thank you so much. And again, you've got 5 minutes. When you've got 1 minute left, I will let you know. And the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Mark Jenkins, and I speak to you from a unique perspective. My wife and I have 3 children who are all students in the Victoria School District. I was a teacher for 7 years. I am now a Victoria police officer and was one of the last school liaison officers in Victoria. I will speak both as a police officer and as a parent. I would first like to address the recent letter from the Greater Teachers Association. I personally was extremely hurt, was emotionally upset, and blindsided by the language, messaging, and theme of this recommendation. I work with the most kind, amazing, courageous, caring, and compassionate group of men and women. They arrive to work every day because they want to make a difference. The testament to who they are truly shines in the most extreme and dangerous moments. They have families of their own who attend our schools, live in our neighborhoods, are on PACs, school groups. They coach sports teams and are leaders in their churches. The emotions and pride I have for the people I work with are beyond words. Since this letter went public, the demand for police in schools has dramatically increased. Administrators, teachers, and parents are thanking police for what we do. The support has been overwhelming and not a reflection of what the association is claiming in the letter. As a school liaison officer, I was called dozens of times by students who had been victims of various criminal offenses. Victims came to me because they trusted me. Without police in schools to develop these connections, the amount of unreported crimes will truly never be known. Being in the schools was an opportunity to show a face to a uniform and then a name to the face. It was done in a safe environment on students' terms. This was extremely important for those that historically mistrusted police. It allowed us to connect and rebuild trust. I would like to provide some additional information to the board. The Regional School Safety Committee was established 6 years ago to address the rise in school lockdowns in the region. It includes the 4 municipal police departments and the RCMP in the region from Sydney to Sauk. The 4 school boards being Victoria, Sauk, Saanich, and the Francophone schools. The 3 largest private schools, GNS, St. Michael's, and PCS. Principals from elementary, middle, and high schools, district counselors, Safer Schools, ERT members, and the fire department. This group has worked in collaboration to revise lockdown policies, procedures, and overall school safety. On March 18th, the committee is having an emergency meeting. This is to brief the committee on the threat that is stemming from gangs that now have infiltrated our schools. This threat is real and goes beyond anything that we have seen before. No longer are we dealing with small localized gangs, but are now dealing with organized crime and established gangs from Vancouver that are coming to Victoria to recruit students. The violence associated to them is real and has already been reported in our schools. In conclusion, I would like to speak as a police officer. The letter from the Teachers Association in no way a true statement of our officers in the region. Working in schools, we understand the importance of relationship building, trust, and connections. Lockdowns are on the rise in our region. To note, the beginning of this year, there have been 304 school shootings in the United States since Columbine. Many argued that these occurred south of the border and not a Canadian concern. On June 28, 2022, one of the most single violent incidences in Canadian history occurred at the Bank of Montreal shooting. Instead of a bank, it could have easily been a school. 1 week later, the same type of firearms were located in Victoria on an unrelated file. Guns are now common in our communities. The organized crime and gangs in our schools is real and it is horrifying. We know the capabilities of the gangs and we know why they are here. Much of the intel of what is occurring is coming from our officers that are connected with the schools. The threat is real.
Jenkins, you
The
have 1 minute.
violence is real. Thank you. And the recruitment is real. I now conclude as a parent. You are in a position on this board to protect our children. If there are any personal biases towards police, they need to be put aside. Thousands of children, staff, and parents rely on you to protect them. It is your duty. To vote against police in schools ignores safety for our children. It ignores everything that is occurring in our schools. My final statement that if the board votes against ending the program, I as a parent will be speaking to schools more loudly than ever. I will tell everyone who cares to listen. I will carry my voice as far as I can. I know the risk to our schools, and cutting this program is irresponsible, it is dangerous, and it is without consideration to the thousands of students who deserve to be protected. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. Okay, folks, we have a number of pieces of correspondence on our agenda this evening, these 1 to 8. I wonder if trustees, if you wanted to pull anything for discussion this evening. I wanted to just clarify. So in a few pieces of correspondence, there's a few things that have come up that suggest to me that there might be a lack of clarity about where we are with some of the SPLO related processes and what the impacts would be. So I just want to clarify for folks that the board has not made a decision about the SPLO program yet. It will be a matter that's coming to the board shortly, very likely at the Ed policy meeting, although that has yet to be determined. We will finalize our agenda tomorrow evening, and then we will know whether or not it's going to happen in May or not, or possibly the following month. So, but I really wanted to reiterate that the board has not made a decision. And I think the other point that's coming across that there may be a little bit of misinformation out there is just around budget. So the board is not considering cutting budget. So we don't fund police liaison officers. That is done through municipal police budgets. So municipal police and our CMP budgets would apply to SPLO officers. So it's not our budget. We don't decide what happens with that budget. So folks will note that the Victoria Police decided a while back to not fund their SPLO officer. And so that was a decision made by the police, not by the board. So I just want to clarify that that is not going to be part of the board's discussion because we don't control those budgets. Okay, so thank you, folks. Appreciate it. I'm not hearing of any correspondence that folks want to pull in particular, but I did want to just clarify to make sure that everybody understood where we are in the process and what the board has power to do and not do. Okay, so I'm going to move us along in our chair's report. So this is under C1D. I wanted to just, in addition to what is there in the pack-up relating to my report, I just wanted to acknowledge also that I had the pleasure of attending the Pathways and Partnerships student scholarship ceremony along with two of my board colleagues, Trustee David and Trustee Kwan. It was a very joyous event. Students were extremely excited to receive their awards, and it was really impressive to see what the students had accomplished, both in their academic life and then also in their new professional lives. There was just such a diversity in the areas that they were interested in. There was electricians, plumbers, hair design, culinary arts. So it was really exciting to be part of that, and it was very nice to do with both of my colleagues. I also wanted to acknowledge that over the weekend, this 22nd of April was Earth Day. And so Earth Day is an annual event, happens every April 22nd, and it's really allows us to pause and to demonstrate our support for environmental protection. And I know that many of our schools this week are going to be doing a week-long series of activities and learning opportunities related to Earth Day. So I really wanted to just pause and to acknowledge that important day. Now, in terms of the board, my board report this month, there is a recommended motion contained in that report. So this just relates back to previous reports where I indicated that there was a few additional items to the board to consider adding to our annual board work plan. So really, it's mostly a housekeeping recommended motion, and it is at C1D of the report. The recommended motion is that the Board of Education of School District number 61 add the following items to our board work plan. So the first item is each December conduct an annual review of Appeal Bylaw 9331.1, which aligns with the board's obligation to review both the appeal bylaw and the associated feedback forms. And then at II is each May review ad hoc committees that may need to be concluded by a board motion. And then finally, each June, trustees will provide the board with a report pertaining to their work on ad hoc committees during the year. Just things that we do as a matter of course, but we have not to date included in our board work plan. And so I'm wondering if, well, I'm happy to move it, but I'm wondering if anybody agrees that we should be adding those items to our board work plan and would like to second that. Thank you, Trustee Kwan. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of adding those items to our board work plan? With a show of hands. All those opposed? Abstentions? Trustee David, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your vote. Were you in favor, opposed, or abstaining?
I'm still unsure, like, still be new and not, yeah, just,
Were you wanting to abstain? That is your right. You don't need to vote in favor or against. And if you're not sure, you're welcome to abstain.
I'll abstain.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so that's all in favor with Trustee David abstaining. Okay, folks. So E of the report, chair's report, you'll also find the board work plan. I wonder if there's any questions around the work plan or anything that we want to highlight from the work plan. Looking really to staff. There's been a few changes to the work plan just because some dates have changed around our normal capital planning cycle. Okay, well, it's there for your information. And so moving on, we have board committee reports. We don't have any trustee reports, any verbal reports under C2, so we're moving on to board committee reports. The first is under D1, Education Policy and Directions Committee. D1A is the draft set of minutes. That's just for information only. The committee itself will review their minutes and then vote to approve those. There was no recommended motions from Education Policy and Directions this month. So moving on to D2, the Operations Policy and Planning Committee. At D2A, again, is draft minutes from that committee for information only. At D2B, there are 2 recommended motions coming from Operations Policy and Planning this month. Wonder, folks, whether we want to move those together or if anyone would like to sever those motions and consider them separately. May I have someone move them together then? Thank you, Trustee Kwan, and a seconder. Thank you, Trustee Carmichael. Okay, so just for clarity's sake, so the motions that we're moving together are the recommended motions from Operations Policy and Planning from April 17th. The first one reads that the Board of Education of School District number 61, Greater Victoria, direct the policy subcommittee to recommend a policy and regulation on international student enrollment with particular reference to the Surrey School District policy and regulation, and further present the recommendations to the Education Policy and Directions Standing Committee in June 2023. The second recommended motion coming from Operations is that the Board of Education of School District number 61, Greater Victoria, direct the chair to write to the Minister of Education and Childcare, Minister of Finance, and Premier advocating for additional funding. Any discussion? Hearing none. You know what? Please accept my apology to the partners around the table. I got ahead of myself. Before I call a vote, I want to pause and just invite our partners to comment on either of those motions before we vote. So again, my apologies to our partners around the table, but you do have a right to comment on the motions before we vote. So if you would like to comment, this is the time to do so. And again, accept my apologies. Okay, hearing no comment, I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor of the recommended motions. And that is unanimous. Thank you, trustees. Okay, so we're moving on to D3, which is our Budget Advisory Committee. There is a Budget Advisory Committee, March 9th, 2023 minutes. And again, I'm assuming those are for information for information, Secretary Treasurer. Anything you wanted to highlight from those minutes?
Nothing in particular. That was the final Budget Advisory Committee that was had. So there's some additional information from what was presented to the board on March 14th, I believe. There is one last Budget Advisory Committee meeting that will be held on May 4th. It's a debrief meeting, and so these minutes will go to the committee for approval at that meeting.
Perfect. Thank you, Secretary Treasurer. Okay, so we're going to move to E. This is our district leadership team reports. At E1 is the superintendent's monthly report. Superintendent, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Chair Duncan. You will see in the pack-up the work of this month to April 24th, that the aligns with the goals that we have for the strategic plan. You'll also see on the second page some gratitude and some congratulations, which is where I'd like to focus this evening's conversation too. As mentioned, Trustee Duncan, we had the Pathways and Partnerships Student Scholarship evening, and just want to wish all of those recipients the best as they continue to pursue their careers. Also, many thanks to the 1000 by 5 Literacy Project. They had their 12th anniversary. Throughout the 12 years, they've distributed over 300,000 books to 0 to 5-year-old young readers, which is fantastic, and a lot of work on behalf of the volunteers who go every Wednesday and receive the books and sort the books and distribute the books. So again, a fantastic community piece and community partnership with 1000 by 5. And also had the privilege to attend a grade 12 capstone evening. Such a really great event for grade 12 students. And I know many grade 12 students, if not all grade 12 students throughout the district, are currently either completing it or participating in it as their final project or one of their final projects in order to graduate. So lovely to see the passion and the interest and the areas of exploration for the grade 12 students as they look to what is next after they complete high school. And lastly, just immense gratitude to Financial Services Department at Secretary Treasurer Katrina Stride, as well as Associate Secretary Treasurer Julie Lettner for all of their work in the 2023-2024 budget process. So a lot of work and many, many thanks to a smooth budget process on behalf of senior leadership team. And that is my report for April.
Thank you very much, Superintendent. Appreciate that. Trustees, do you have any questions for the Superintendent pertaining to this month's report? Okay, hearing none, the recommended motion that the Board of Education of School District number 61 Greater Victoria receive the Superintendent's report as presented. May I have a mover? Thank you, Trustee Bayo, seconded by Trustee Gagnon. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of receiving the Superintendent's report? And that is unanimous. Thank you, trustees, and thank you, Superintendent Whitten. So at B, we're moving on to the 2023-24 and 2024-25 school calendar. The recommended motion is that the Board of Education of School District number 61 Greater Victoria approve the 2023-2024 and 2024-2025 school calendars. Wondered, I know Associate Superintendent Arts worked on this on behalf of the board. So I wondered if there's anything that you wanted to highlight or just add for information before we proceed.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair. No, nothing to add. We talked about this fairly thoroughly. The dates remain the same as what was posted. And that recommended motion is to support that in alignment with Suk and Saanich as much as possible, especially with our larger breaks at winter and spring break. There are a couple of individual Pro D days that are not fully in alignment, but it wasn't possible because Suk and Saanich aren't in alignment on those days. So we matched with one of them, which was the best we could do. So happy to answer questions, but nothing else to add.
Thank you, Associate Superintendent Arts. Appreciate that. From our partners around the table, I wonder if there's any questions or comments that you wanted to offer before I turn things over to the trustees. Okay, great. Trustees, may I have a mover? Thank you, Trustee Kwan, seconded by Trustee Gagnon. Any discussion about the 2 years of scheduling we've done here? No, okay. Appreciate all the work that went into getting to this point, and I think it's great that we've aligned the school calendars with our neighboring school district. It makes districts. It makes a lot of sense. So thanks so much. Any other discussion before we proceed to vote? Okay, all those in favor? I'm sorry, if you can just leave your hands up, folks. Just want to make sure I've got everybody. And that is unanimous. Thank you, folks. Okay, so we're moving along here. Our next item on our agenda this evening is our academy fees. So this is at C, our 2023-2024 special academy fees. The recommended motion is that the Board of Education of School District 61, Greater Victoria, makes available to the public via the district website the schedules of fees that have been approved by the Parents Advisory Council for the school where the board proposes to offer specialty academies. So there is a memo associated with this one. So I wonder whether, not sure who is going to be presenting the memo. Yeah, Associate Superintendent Arts. Great, I'll turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, through the chair. Yeah, so each year by School Act, if there is a special academy offered in a school district, any fees associated with that academy need to be discussed and supported by the school PAC. So you'll find we have 4 academies in our school district. One at Lambert Park Rugby, one at Esquimalt High School Rugby, Lambert Park baseball, softball, Reynolds, which is soccer, and Spectrum, which is hockey. And so there's attached to them signatures from PAC and the school principal around the associated fees. And then we are, as a board, or you as a board, just start to endorse that. Those will be disclosed publicly on our website. So happy to answer any questions, but I think the details are in the memo. Yeah, but if there are any, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you very much. All right, trustees, do we have any questions related to the academy fees or the specialty academy fees for this year? No, okay, no, I think it's fairly clear from the presentation. The only thing I wanted to just clarify was that none of the fees have increased. Is that right? They're all the same as they were last year?
No, in 2 cases, there's an increase.
Okay.
So at Reynolds, there's an increase of $100 from 1,000 to 1,100. That's the first increase in 20 years. So it started at 1,000 when it opened. So that's the first one. And the other one that's increased is Spectrum's Hockey Academy. And so it's increased from 1,500 to 1,750, so $250. And the largest thing there is ice rentals has gone up on them. And so obviously for the Hockey Academy, that's the biggest increase there. And 2017 was their last increase. So rugby and baseball and softball, no increase. The other 2, the increases as mentioned. Thank
you. And so for families that where that would be a barrier to accessing the program, what is the advice that we give to families that that want to access it, but that this cost would be a barrier? What would the process be for them? Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, great point. In the memo, it does mention our district hardship policy, and each family who comes into one of the academies that's shared with them. So there is no cost barrier. Any student who is accepted will be able to participate regardless of how much they're able to contribute. Wonderful. Thank you again, Associate Superintendent, for your work on this. All right, folks, any further questions around this? I'm looking to our partners to see if there's any questions or comments they have in relation to the proposed motion before I move things over to trustees. No, okay. All right, so just again to clarify, the motion is that the Board of Education SD61 Greater Victoria makes available to the public via the district website schedules of fees that have been approved by the Parents Advisory Council for the school where the board proposes to offer specialty academies. May I have a mover? Thank you, Trustee Gagnon, and seconded by Trustee Mabobi. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor? All those opposed? And abstentions? All right, so that's everyone in favor with Trustee Kwan abstaining. Thank you very much, folks. So we're moving now into trustee questions under D. So trustees, I'm going to open the floor up to you for any questions that you might have. I just had one, and I'm not sure whether this is something that could be answered tonight, but I wanted to raise it because it's certainly been in the news, and I think folks are getting sort of increasingly concerned around it's an incident in Nanaimo that really highlighted the risks associated with fentanyl-related sort of products being found on our board lands or just in the community. The dangers to students who may not be aware of sort of what they're looking at, and so it's a really close near miss with a family who whose children found I believe it was a bag of fentanyl on school property. Thankfully, the parents were able to intervene before the children were harmed. But I'm just wondering, what our plan is in terms of communicating with students and families about the risks, so that especially for the young kids, they know if they find something on the school ground that is where they're not sure what it is, that they report it and that they don't touch it because it could be dangerous. So I'm just wondering if superintendent or someone else could just speak to what we do in our school district to try to mitigate that risk and communicate with students and staff.
Through the chair. Yeah, we've done a lot of work in this area, particularly with our elementary students and the safety around what could be found on property after an evening. One of the most important pieces that we use is our snapshots, where we share all of that information with parents, and in our school newsletters, where our principals are communicating home regarding safety and all aspects of safety, not just specific to potential harm through substances or paraphernalia. That is a big issue for us in our district, particularly in the inner city, and our schools. I want to say down by Beacon Hill Park, if I can use that, where our staff are often out early, and we do sweeps of those areas prior to, so that we're ensuring that we are getting what we can and what we can see throughout those areas. So a consistent approach with our facilities department early in the morning prior to the start of school, and messaging to parents through our school newsletters and through our district snapshots that contains a lot of information on safety for students. It is spring now, with it being a nice time to be in fields, so we are going to have another campaign with families, just a reminder of overall safety, including with sports equipment, because we know there's slight hazards that happen with that as well. So we will be doing an update shortly regarding spring and the need for just being mindful of the environment that we're in. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That is appreciated. Yeah, it's something that we all hope when we never come across, but we know that the reality of the world we're living in, there is a risk. So thank you very much for highlighting some of the things that we do to mitigate that risk. Much appreciated. All right, so we're moving on to Secretary Treasurer's report at E2A. There's a monthly report and a motion to receive that report. Secretary Treasurer, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Included in the agenda package is my monthly report, and it's essentially a list of the events and meetings and professional development that I have been participating in since March 13th. So that is there for your information, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's very clear that you and your staff have been extremely busy, so thank you so much. Much appreciated. Trustees, do we have any questions for the Secretary Treasurer? Okay, all right, so the motion then is that the Board of Education of SD61 Greater Victoria receive the Secretary Treasurer's report as presented. May I have a mover? Thank you, Trustee Kwan, and a seconder. Trustee Carmichael, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you, folks, and thank you to the Secretary Treasurer. The next item is under B, and that's the 2023-2024 Capital Plan Bylaw. I'm going to turn this over to the Secretary Treasurer to present. And I wonder, Secretary Treasurer, if you could just contextualize why we're reviewing this item tonight, the changes in the timeline.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we added this item in after the agenda package had gone out, realizing that we had received the letter on March 9th advising us what we had been approved for 2022, 23, 2024 our capital. And we have a funding agreement that needs to be signed, but the board needs to pass a capital bylaw before the ministry will release any funding for these projects. And so our next meeting isn't until the end of May. So we thought it would be prudent for us to get this into tonight's agenda package. We've included in the agenda a memo which has the capital programs that have been approved by the ministry, including the letter that they sent us, and also the full capital bylaw that's related to the 5-year capital plan. So under major capital programs, there is one project that has been approved to proceed to a project development report, a PDR, which is essentially a business case for the seismic upgrade to happen at that school. And under minor capital programs, under the school enhancement program, South Park Elementary has been approved to proceed to design, tender, and construction of roofing upgrades. And those upgrades are to be completed by March 31st, 2024. The funding for that was $1 million. And under the carbon neutral capital program, both Doncaster Elementary and Reynolds Secondary were approved to proceed to design, tender, and construction for HVAC upgrades. Doncaster is to be completed by the end of December 2023 and Reynolds by the end of March 2024. Doncaster received funding of $518,200 and Reynolds Secondary $350,000. And I've also just noted there that the draft submission for the capital plan for 2024-2025 will be presented at the OPS meeting on May 8th, and then it will come back to OPS in June, the final submission with final approval at the regular board meeting on June 19th. So what we're looking for tonight is 3 readings of the capital bylaw, and it's included in the agenda package.
Thank you very much, Secretary Treasurer, much appreciated. Okay, folks, so I'm going to open up the floor to questions regarding the memo. Trustee Gagnon, if you want to kick us off.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you. I am happy to see projects proceeding with some help from the ministry. My question is in regards to the difference in dates of completion between Doncaster Elementary and Reynolds Secondary for their CNCP HVAC upgrades. I'm wondering why there's a variation of 3 months there.
Thank you, Trustee Gagnon. Secretary Treasurer, or anyone else that might be able to provide context. I know our Director of Facilities is also here. Welcome.
I could probably answer that one for you. So Reynolds is a full boiler upgrade. So we've purchased the boiler through AFG this year. So we should receive them within the next 2 weeks and be able to start installing before school's out. And for Doncaster, it's only 4-unit ventilators. So it's quite a small project. So we'll get that tendered soon and they'll be able to do it. If not by the end of the summer, they can work around school while school's in.
Thank you very much. Trustee Kwan.
Thank you. I actually have a couple of questions. My first one is, are there any items that we had submitted for our capital plan, regardless of whether they were minor or major, that were not approved? And my second question would be with regards to the HVAC system. I know that eventually I think Reynolds is on the list for a seismic upgrade at some point, and just wondered, you know, with a new HVAC upgrade, whether that would affect, and whether that, you know, that money, whether it could be again used when we do that upgrade.
Thank you, Trustee Kwan.
So Reynolds first, we can actually use the boilers for the new build or the seismic build. If we do a seismic, they can stay in the place. If we're lucky enough to get a new school, they can move to the new school. So that's a bonus. And then we did get some projects that were not approved, like we do every single year. That's not unforeseen. The biggest one that was a surprise is we did not get any of our PEP, our playgrounds, our playground enhancement program. There are some years where we've gotten 2 approved in 1 year, which is abnormal too. So we didn't get 1 this year, so hopefully we'll get 1 next year. So those schools will remain on the program for next year's. Hopefully we'll get them funded. But we're lucky to get the biggest one we wanted this year was South Park. So this is phase 1 of 2 for the South Park roof. So we're lucky.
That's great. Thank you.
Welcome.
And so just to clarify then, in terms of major capital, I note that Sundance has been approved. I'm wondering if we can get some sense of what is happening with Bank, just because I know, you know, if we're upgrading Sundance, yeah, I'm wondering how, if at all, that influences Bank.
Part of the PDR process is to look at the site as a whole. So we've asked the architect to look at absolutely everything, including Bank Street. So I really honestly, I can't answer that right now until we get the full submission for the PDR and we know the costs of everything.
Okay, if I could just ask that staff bring back an update once they do have information relative to Bank, because I suspect that the board will be interested in what the options are. And then the only other question I had was, again, in relation to major, if we could get an update. So next, I'm assuming that next year, so when we're planning in May and June, that we're hoping to get Shoreline and Craigflower back on the list. Is that correct?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, great. All right, thank you so much. Trustees, any final questions before we start to proceed through our readings? Okay, so seeing none, I just want to go over process here. So again, because it's a bylaw reading, we're going to move through the first 2 distinct readings. And then after that, I'm going to move you through a motion in order to do a 3rd reading. If we do a 3rd reading tonight, again, that the motion to approve a 3rd reading needs to be unanimous in order for us to proceed to that 3rd reading. So we're going to start with the 1st reading. So the recommended motion is that the Board of Education of School District number 61 Greater Victoria approve capital bylaw number 2023/24 CPSD 6101 capital plan 2023-24, whereas in accordance with section 142 of the School Act, the Board of Education of School District number 61 Greater Victoria, hereinafter called the board, has submitted a capital plan to the Minister of Education, hereinafter called the Minister, and the Minister has approved the capital plan or has approved a capital plan with modifications. Now, therefore, in accordance with section 143 of the School Act, the board has prepared this capital plan bylaw and agrees to do the following. A, authorize the Secretary Treasurer to execute a capital project funding agreements related to the capital projects contemplated by the capital plan or the capital plan with modifications. B, upon ministerial approval to proceed, commence the capital projects and proceed diligently and use its best efforts to complete each capital project substantially as directed by the Minister. C, observe and comply with any order, regulation, or policy of the Minister as may be applicable to the board or the capital projects. And D, maintain proper books of accounts and other information and documents with respect to the affairs of the capital projects as may be prescribed by the Minister. Now, therefore, the board enacts as follows. 1, The capital plan bylaw of the board for the 2023-24 capital plan is approved by the minister to include the supported capital projects specified in the letter addressed to the Secretary Treasurer and Superintendent dated March 9th, 2023 is hereby adopted. 2, this capital plan bylaw may be cited as School District number 61 Greater Victoria, capital bylaw number 2003-24-CPSD 61-01, read a first time this 24th day of April 2023. May I have a mover? Thank you, Trustee Kwan, and seconded by Trustee Gagnon. Any discussion? All right, hearing none, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor with a show of hands. And that is unanimous. Thank you, folks. Okay, second reading, and bear with me, I've got to read through this again. You're going to get sick of my voice by the end of the evening, but I'll do my best to be as succinct as possible. Okay, so the Board of Education of School District number 61, Greater Victoria, approved capital bylaw 2023-24-CPSD 61-01, capital plan 2023-24. Whereas in accordance with section 142 of the School Act, the Board of Education of School District number 61, Greater Victoria, hereinafter called the Board, have submitted a capital plan to the Minister of Education, hereinafter called the Minister, and the Minister has approved the capital plan or has approved a capital plan with modifications. Now, therefore, in accordance with section 143 of the School Act, the Board has prepared this capital bylaw and agrees to do the following. A, authorize the Secretary Treasurer to execute a capital project funding agreement related to the capital projects contemplated by the capital plan or the capital plan with modifications. B, upon ministerial approval to proceed, commence the capital projects and proceed diligently and use its best efforts to complete each capital project substantially as directed by the Minister. Observe and comply with any order, regulation, or policy of the Minister as may be applicable to the Board or the capital projects. And D, maintain proper books of account and other information and documents with respect to the affairs of the capital project as may be prescribed by the Minister. Now, therefore, the Board enacts as follows. 1, the capital bylaw of the Board for the 2023-24 capital plan is approved by the Minister to include the supported capital projects specified in the letter addressed to the Secretary Treasurer and Superintendent dated March 9th, 2023 is hereby adopted. 2, this capital bylaw may be cited as School District number 61 Greater Victoria, capital bylaw number 2023-24-CPSD 61-01, read a second time this 24th day of April 2023. May I have a mover? Thank you, Trustee Bio, seconded by Trustee Gagnon. Any discussion, trustees? All right, hearing none, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor with a show of hands. And again, that is unanimous. All right, thanks, trustees. Okay, so as discussed, the next motion is to approve a third reading of the bylaw this evening. And again, in order for us to proceed, this motion must be supported unanimously by the Board. The recommended motion is that the Board of Education of School District number 61 Greater Victoria agreed to give all 3 readings of the School District number 61 Greater Victoria capital bylaw number 2023-24-CPSD 61-01 at the April 24th, 2023 board meeting. May I have a mover? Thank you, Trustee Gagnon, seconded by Trustee Carmichael. Any discussion? All right, hearing none, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of doing a third reading this evening? And that is unanimous. Thank you, trustees. All right, so we're going to proceed then with a third and final reading. So one more time from the top, folks. Here we go. All right, so the recommended motion is that the Board of Education of School District number 61 Greater Victoria approve capital bylaw number 2023-24-6 PSD 61-01 capital plan 2023-24. Whereas in accordance with section 142 of the School Act, the Board of Education of School District number 61 Greater Victoria, hereinafter called the Board, has submitted a capital plan to the Minister of Education, hereinafter called the Minister, and the Minister has approved the capital plan or has approved a plan with modifications. Now, therefore, in accordance with Section 143 of the School Act, the board has prepared this capital bylaw and agrees to do the following. A, authorize the Secretary Treasurer to execute a capital project funding agreement related to the capital projects contemplated by the capital plan or the capital plan with modifications. B, upon ministerial approval to proceed, commence the capital projects and proceed diligently and use its best efforts to complete each capital project substantially as directed by the minister. C, observe and comply with any order, regulation, or policy of the minister as may be applicable to the board or the capital projects. And D, maintain proper books of accounts and other information and documents with respect to the affairs of the capital projects as may be prescribed by the minister. Now, therefore, the board enacts as follows. 1, the capital bylaw of the board for the 2023-24 capital plan as approved by the minister to include the supported capital projects specified in the letter addressed to the Secretary Treasurer and Superintendent dated March 9th, 2023 is hereby adopted. And 2, this capital bylaw may be cited as School District number 61, Greater Victoria, capital bylaw number 2023-24-CPSD 61-01, read a third time this 24th day of April 2023, and finally passed and adopted the 24th day of April 2023. May I have a mover? Thank you, Trustee Gagnon, seconded by Trustee Mabobi. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of the third reading? And that is unanimous. All right, thank you, folks, and thank you to the Secretary Treasurer and the staff that pulled that together and made it easy. Much appreciated. Okay, so we're now moving on to C, which is our 2023-24 annual facilities grant, or AFG, expenditure plan submission. Secretary Treasurer, did you want to present this one?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'll just provide a summary of the memo, but we have the Director of Facility Services, Marnie, here, who can help to answer any questions. So included in the memo, I've just provided an overview of the ministry policy related to the annual facility grant. Essentially, the grant is provided to school districts to allow them to undertake annual facility projects that are required to maintain facility assets through their anticipated economic life and to prevent premature deterioration of these assets. And they've come up with 9 categories of eligible expenditures, including accessibility upgrades, asbestos abatement, electrical upgrades, exterior wall system upgrades, HVAC upgrades, interior construction upgrades, plumbing upgrades, roofing upgrades, and site upgrades. And for the 2023-2024 year, the district has received funding just over $5 million, which is actually $917,000 more than what we received in the current year. And included in the agenda package is the 23-24 AFG expenditure plan submission. That will be going to the ministry probably as soon as possible, but the deadline for submission is May 19th. The submission includes a list of the AFG projects and expenditures that the school district expects to undertake during the ministry's fiscal year, so between April 1st and March 31st. So Marnie is here if you have any questions, but included in the report, and I won't go through all of them, are all of the projects that facilities plans to undertake in the next year.
Thank you very much, Secretary Treasurer. I'm going to open the floor to questions. Trustee Painter, go ahead.
Thanks, and perhaps I'm jumping the gun, and this is going to be addressed in the climate change working group. But one of the things I'm really interested in is understanding how the decisions we're making about what we're going forward with is going to help to reduce our footprint, our carbon footprint, and to improve the, well, I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Trustee Painter. Yeah, I'm sure the Director of Facilities could speak to our CNP.
Yeah, we work really closely with Brian, our energy manager, on all our choices. So all the energy choices, there's about a $300,000 budget for energy projects. And then they're done, we get rebates for the lighting and they go straight back into AFG so we can continue to do more energy projects. So that's one way we decrease our carbon footprint. The other way is any of our heating upgrades, which is a big portion of our greenhouse gas emissions. We work really closely with Brian in choosing the boilers and choosing the schools that we need to. Reynolds was kind of bumped to the top of the list because we lost its boiler about 2 weeks ago. So that was a little more of an emergency. But we do work really closely with Brian to make all those choices, and that includes fleet as well. So we're getting 3 electric fleet vehicles, which is new for us for the district. So pretty exciting. So we're working towards it.
Thanks very much.
Welcome.
Any other questions? I just had one in terms of how AFG can be used. So I wonder whether there's any outstanding health and safety related upgrades to the shops or to the potable water infrastructure where those improvements could be prioritized through the AFG funding. I know there's limits to kind of how it can be allocated, so I wonder if you could speak to that.
Yeah, funny you ask. So this year we had some extra money left over. So we actually, around January, we ordered a dust collector for Esquimalt. And so with that dust collector, we were able to find extra money. Some projects came in under budget, so we were able to tender. So it went out for tender, and we've got the contractor on board to install the dust collector at Esquimalt. So that's great. As for the water quality, I asked the manager of maintenance to look into your question from last week or the week before to figure out what we could do and how many are a 30-second flush. So hopefully I'll have statistics back and have more of an answer. Right now, we don't have a lot of plumbing projects because we have a lot of heating problems within our schools right now, and that's where a lot of our staff go to in the winter. We don't really have the staff to keep up with extra projects like that currently. We're working on it though.
Thank you, appreciate that. So it sounds like there is some flexibility to use AFG to fund some of those sort of more high priority health and safety things. I just noticed in this year's memo that it speaks to the ministry's expectation that school districts use the funding to prioritize health and safety related upgrades that are needed. So hence my question. So thank you. I'm glad to see that we are finding ways to use that funding to prioritize those.
And we are, and with the extra 900,000, we're actually able to put and do a lot of our elevator repairs, which is a first for us. Usually they get put aside. So we've got a lot of elevator repairs on this year's AFG plan. So it's exciting.
That's great. Yeah, from an accessibility perspective, that's fantastic news. And I'm so happy to hear about the Esquimalt shop. That's excellent. I'm sure they're excited over there. Okay, well, good. Any other questions, folks? Okay, now, do we have a recommended motion for this? Or is this more of a information item because it's our submission?
Chair, I can answer that question.
Yeah.
Initially, we thought there was a board resolution required, but there isn't one for the AFG submission. So it's really for information, and facilities will submit that on our behalf. It's the capital plan, like we just went through, that requires the bylaw.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Okay, good. Thanks for clarifying. Appreciate that. Okay, so that moves us along. Well, first of all, thank you again to you and the team, and to Marnie and your team for pulling it together for us. That moves us on to F, question period. Do we have any questions? Have any questions come in this evening?
No questions came in this evening.
Okay, thank you, Associate Superintendent Arts. Appreciate that. Okay, so that we now are at the public disclosure of in-camera items. Now we have one. Before we look at our Section 72 reports, where we have a couple of things to amend, we also did have one public disclosure of a motion that I am just going to read out on behalf of the board. So the board passed the following motion, and we wish to report this out publicly this evening, that the Board of Education of School District number 61, Greater Victoria, rescind the April 6, 2023 motion adopted by the board, which terminates the district's membership in the BCSTA, British Columbia School Trustees Association, at the earliest possible opportunity. Okay, so moving on then to the Section 72 reports on the agenda this evening. We do have a couple of things that we need to address with those reports. I wonder, so we're looking to amend G2, G7, G8, and G9 to reflect the subject matter that was actually discussed in those in-camera meetings. So I'm looking for some direction. We know that G2 needs to be amended to reflect that budget was a subject matter. Looking for some clarification around G7, G8, and G9. I know it's a mix of budget and property. So could I get some clarity from staff around what it should look like, those amendments?
Here, I can help with that.
Thank you.
So G2 on the bottom of the list, there's 4 items there. The last one is strategic plan. It should just be replaced with the word budget, not strategic plan.
Okay.
And then under G7, sorry, that was the March 13th meeting, this first March 13th meeting. And then G7, which is the April 4th meeting. It also says strategic plan, it should say budget. And that's the same for G8. So April 5th says strategic plan and it should say budget. And then G9, which is April 17th, also says strategic plan, it should say property.
This should say property, okay. So G9 is the only one that should say property and the others should say budget. Is that right? Did I get that right? Okay. Okay, so that will be easy enough to move into a motion. And I just want to clarify too that I think that I'm hearing that there might be a question that has come in that maybe we missed. So we'll come back to that. But first, let's dispense of these amendments. So we need to move a motion that the Board of Education, SD61, Greater Victoria, direct the superintendent to amend the Section 72 reports under G2 by replacing the word strategic plan with budget. At G7, by replacing the word strategic plan with budget. At G8, by replacing the words strategic plan with budget. With property. And then at G9, by replacing the words strategic plan with budget. Did I get that right, Secretary Treasurer? Or did we mix up something? It was property the last G9? Yeah, okay,
yeah,
sorry.
That's right.
So G8 is budget and G9 is property. Okay, we got there in the end. Okay, so just to clarify, we're replacing a G2, we're replacing strategic plan with budgets. G7, we're replacing strategic plan with budget. G8, again, replacing strategic plan with budget. And then at G9, we're adding property or replacing strategic plan with property. Okay, may I have a mover to amend those Section 72 reports accordingly? Thank you, Trustee Kwan, and a seconder, Trustee Gagnon. Any discussion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor of the amendments to those Section 72 reports. And that is unanimous. Thank you, Trustee Mabobi, for indicating virtually. All right, so I think we need to back up on our agenda, folks. I think we may have missed a question period question. So can I just ask for your patience for a moment while I just double check what's come in? Okay, so I'm just gonna confirm where how this got missed, folks, and then I think there is I think it may have just come directly to trustees. So let me just forward this to staff. Okay, so I just forwarded that to the Secretary Treasurer and the Superintendent. I think what happened was it came directly to trustees. Okay, so these are questions that were submitted. They were submitted. Okay, let me just see here. So there's a number of questions, and I'm just gonna read the questions themselves out, and then maybe I'll pause after each question in case there's an answer that can be provided in the context of our meeting this evening, and if not, then we'll come back to the requester with answers offline. So the first question is, the ICA does great work in our community, but why was there no public consultation for the ICA facility at Vic High? Further still, why was the space allocated without a user agreement in place as stated at this meeting? And I think they're referring to an ops meeting on April 17th when this matter came up. Okay, and then there's a bit of I think maybe some background context. So Secretary, Treasurer, or Superintendent, is that a question that can be answered this evening, or is that something that we need to come back and consider and come back to the individual?
Thank you, Chair. I believe this is a question we would have to take away and bring back to the individual.
Okay. Second question is information about NLCs from the BC Parks and Recreation Association says that tracks qualify for NLC money. Kai's track and field qualified for the same NLC funding that was used for the ICA building. Some of the funding was used for Vic High's turf fields. This leads me to why wasn't all of it used for Vic High's track and field plans? The track previously voted for at the open house held at Vic High, refurbish the track and Memorial Stadium. Okay, so that's number 2. Is that something that we can comment on this evening and provide an answer, or is that something that we need to come back to the individual on?
I would look to the Secretary Treasurer, but I think this one would be one we would need to come back to as well.
Okay. Okay, the third question is from this side, it looks like the district told Vic High alumni they had no money for Vic High's track and field when they actually had 4.6 million in NLC funding. ICA is a very reputable organization and does a lot of good in our community. However, if I understand it correctly, it looks like the ICA has been pulled into the financial mismanagement of Vic High, unfortunately. Again, is there anything that we can add in relation to that tonight, or again, we'll come back? Okay. Okay, so and then the fifth question, and I believe the final question is, I understand the Fernwood Neighborhood Resource Group, Fernwood NRG, has been receiving regular reports about the seismic upgrade, and only after my pushing for information about these updates. Where was the catchment consultation on Fernwood NRG's involvement? Do I understand correctly that the Fernwood NRG will gain access to Vic High school grounds as well? Is there anything that we can provide to the question this evening, or does this also need to be responded to after some consideration?
Oh, sorry. Yes, this would be also something we would need to take away and come back later.
Okay, all right. Well, the questions have been read into the record, and so just for the requester's benefit, you'll be contacted with responses in due course. All right, so I'm just going to get us back to our agenda. We are at the end of our agenda. Don't think we've missed any other questions, hopefully not, but please let me know if something's come in and I've missed it. Do we have any new business or notices of motion? Okay, hearing none, may I have a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Trustee Kwan, seconded by Trustee Bio. All those in favor? And that is unanimous.